What is going on, gentlemen? It is I, Matthew Brolick, back once again for some hype UDL playoff content. Now, we are not just in the regular stages of the playoffs anymore. We are actually in the semifinals, the top 4 out of 24 coaches. So that's kind of cool in the sense that there's a lot more coaches or, players than there normally are in most leagues. Usually you'll have a max of 16. I haven't really seen many leagues that go more than 16. So how the UDL works is it's basically 2 leagues of 12, both with separate drafts and draft pools, and both with separate playoffs. And whoever wins each playoff goes to the finals and play from separate conferences for the overall champion or championship. So that's kind of cool, as this is the final 4 remaining out of 24, and after a really long and hype season, it's pretty exciting to see who is it going to come down to. I know my boy Akki over here predicted that Mount Rushmore players were going to be in the final 4, and now we don't have our boy Iron Flash Gaming in the mix, but that's because he's not in the league. Otherwise maybe he would be here. But out of the 3 that are in the league, we did all make the final 4, so that is pretty cool. And yeah, I'm just overall really hyped to commentate these games for you guys, because we have some really good content coming up. As first, we have both MaranVaran, the surprise of the season, versus AkkiVGC. Now, that's not to take anything away from Maran. Of course, he's an amazing player. It's just that, as I mentioned in the past couple weeks, he just kind of scraped by to get into playoffs, and then he took out 2 people who probably had better seasons than he did during the regular season, as he was even saying he wasn't really comfortable with his team, and all of a sudden he's just been tearing it up, especially with this Pokemon right here, Sigilif, as I will be calling it today, Big Liffer or Young Liffer. I can't remember which one Akki called it, but I think that sounds so much better. It's nice and clean, rolls off the tongue. Young Liffer, I like it. So he's really been surprising people and claiming some big wins, as Akki has just been pretty dominant this season. He had one loss early on and another one actually to Maran. Other than that, he's been winning the majority of his games, and he's looked great in playoffs so far, even though last week was a really close one. So this should be a hype game, because both of these guys get really creative. They both get really innovative, and they played earlier this season. They also played in ITL finals last season, so that is also pretty hype. Another rematch, kind of like a rubber match between the two, as we will just get right into it now. As Maran leads with his Talonflame, and Akki leads with the Ferrothorn, as he stays in because he's Aqua Berry, and he gets burned by the Will-O-Wisp. But here he's going to switch, as the Talon just goes right for a U-turn, and the Pex takes very little from that. And here, Maran goes right for the Cosmic Power, as Akki goes right for the knockoff. And this is interesting because he knocks off the Life Orb. Now, when you normally see Young Liffer going for Cosmic Powers, you might be inclined to think that it is a Psycho Shift Flame Orb set, as that will allow it to burn physical attackers, and even if they want to set up, the Cosmic Power boost plus the burn really don't allow them to break past it. But in this case, he's actually running Cosmic Power plus Life Orb, which kind of implies that he might be Dual Dance, because if he could set up on the physically defensive side and then set up something like some Calm Minds, then he could really put in some work, not taking rocks and also not taking Life Orb damage. Can allow him to hit really hard even with a defensive spread. So now he ends up going for another Cosmic Power, as the Pex actually pivots out, and now he goes for a Calm Mind right on the Crocodile, as it turns out Akki's packing the Dragon Tail. So that's a really good tech, as you're going to see later on. It's even better than you think, because here Maran's Mawile just happens to come in, as Akki pivots back into Toxic Pex, and Mawile, he switches out into Garchomp, because he's still afraid that, who knows, maybe like this Earthquake could still knock me out at -1, probably not, but he could also be a Roselli Berry Crook, which means he'd be able to take a player off and then still dish out 2 Earthquakes. So he pivots back into the Chomp on the Crook, as Akki actually brings in the Toxapex. As here, Maran goes for a Stealth Rock, thinking that the Pex would switch, but he actually reveals the Ice Beam on the Toxapex. As here he's going to stay in and click it again, knowing that he could live an Earthquake from full, as the Rotom comes in, and Maran just clicks Discharge. Maran loves his Paras, and he does not make any bones about it. He just goes for him. He'll bring Discharge, he'll bring Lava Plume, he'll bring... I mean, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but I know he likes to bring Discharge, and I know that he's gotten lucky with Paras earlier in the season, including last playoff game, actually. So he goes for the Discharge, and that Pex takes it really, really well for a stab electric move, even if it's bulky. And that turns out because this Pex is actually Assault Vested, so that's why it takes it really well, and it gets the knockoff on the Rotom, knocking off the Iapapa Berry, which is really nice, as it makes it not a very, very solid check to Tornadus T later on in the game. So here, it's the Mawile versus the Ferrothorn. Key pivots back into the Toxapex as Maran just makes the safe play and goes for the Fire Fang. And here he goes into Sigilyph. I don't know if he was predicting the Crook or if he just predicted the Pex to be able to live with a Wakan or something. I don't know if he didn't realize that maybe it wasn't, that maybe it was not Assault Vest. Maybe he didn't realize that, as maybe he thought it could be Wakan and burn him with the Scald. Maybe Toxapex could just live with a Thunder Punch from there potentially. But, because that's the thing, if he was predicting the Crook to come in, I don't know why he'd go Sigilyph. But who knows, I'm not exactly sure. As here, the Crook goes for the Dragon Tail again, as here he switches out with his Sigilyph into the Rotom, and he is up against the Torn, and because he does not have his Iapapa Berry, which actually would have procced right there if he still had it, the Torn is able to knock him out with the Sky Strike. So that is really nice for Akki, because his Torn has a pretty good offensive matchup against this team. Heat Wave will hit Mawile pretty hard. He actually is packing the Icy Wind, and then obviously things like Talon do not want to switch in to Torn, especially after Stealth Rocks. Same thing with Vikavolt, unless he happens to be Spadef. As here he's going to switch out, knowing that a Heat Wave probably can't knock out the Mawile from here, as Maran goes for the Rock Tomb onto the Ferrothorn, and is now going to pivot back into his Sigilyph, Young Liffer, as that Burned Explosion does not do too much, as Akki brings in the Crook again, and Maran pivots into the Vikavolt, probably thinking he'd go for a knockoff or something safer like that. Maybe he also thought that Vikavolt was his most expendable member, but that's kind of unfortunate because that Vikavolt takes us pretty well, meaning that if Crook doesn't crit him, then he might be able to 1v1 the Crook with Roosts if he gets a miss, because obviously Bug Buzz could knock out a Crook if it's not like really, really invested or holding a berry or an Assault Vest. So the Crook's item still hasn't really been revealed yet, though, as here Akki clicks Stone Edge again, and here comes the Garchomp, as Akki is actually going to switch out right into his Gallade, and Maran makes the hard read, goes right for the Z, Tectonic Rage, and knocks the Gallade right out, which is not the worst thing in the world for Akki, because his Gallade wasn't necessarily a win con or anything like that, but I believe the Gallade had like Stone Edge, Close Combat, Will-O-Wisp. I don't know if it was Wish or Taunt. I'm not 100% sure if he had Stone Edge, but I think he did, because I think it was kind of to lure Talon. So, but that set really did kind of go in, and it probably is a shame that he let it go down there, but he's still looking okay, as he's able to bring the Torn in here, which does pack the Icy Wind. He goes right for the Defog here, though, as he wants to clear it up for the Volcarona, as the Garchomp misses the Stone Edge here. It turns out that Akki does have enough bulk to live one, but if obviously Stone Edge has a high crit ratio, if he did get the crit, then he would have knocked him out. As here he goes right for the Icy Wind on the Mawile, as now he's going to pivot out, go right into the Pex, as there really isn't much of a reason to waste his Torn here and go right for the Heat Wave. As here he pivots back into the Crook on the Pex, as Maran doesn't want to take the risk and go for the Thunder Punch. He goes into the Talonflame, and now you finally see what set this Crook is, and he goes right for the Choice Scarf Stone Edge, as Maran does get the Will-O-Wisp off. Now that was interesting because this whole game, Akki has only used 2 moves with the Crook, but he's played it so well, especially by using Dragon Tail the first 2 times he attacked with it, making it seem like this Crook wasn't Choice Scarf, because Scarf Lock Dragon Tail is just kind of counterintuitive in the sense that Dragon Tail goes second. It's not some kind of unheard of tech, but he played it so well that he kept bringing it in, forcing Maran out, making him think that he might have the ability to switch up moves, but then was able to bluff the Scarf the entire time and actually reveal it when the Talon wasn't expecting it, popping the Charty Berry and doing a lot of damage to the Talon here, as now Moran is just kind of forced to roost, or attack rather, and try to get lucky. I feel like he should have roosted here. I don't know. But he goes right for the U-turn and brings in the Sigilyph, probably thinking that this could set up and potentially have the chance to win. As here, Akki goes right into the Torn and is actually going to go right for the Icy Wind on the Sigilyph, maybe wanting to slow it down so he can go for a Quiver Dance on Volcarona first. So just in case, like, if he's not running a lot of speed on the Valk and the Siggy happens to have a little more speed, or Young Liffer rather, then he'd be able to hit the Valk first with a +1 potential Air Slash. So he does go for the Calm Mind and then does go for the Roost, as Akki actually goes right for the Quiver Dance as well, and he does outspeed it, and now he'll outspeed it for good. But Young Liffer is at +2, so this thing is kind of ahead of the Valk here. So Moran's going to continue to boost, and now Akki realizes he has to continue to boost as well, as he can definitely lose the war, considering this Sigilyph can definitely have Air Slash, which it does reveal to have, but Akki is packing the tech. He's got the weakness policy, which he was looking basically to spread burns throughout the game, and then have Volcarona live something like either a weak Brave Bird from a Talonflame or a burnt Stone Edge from something, as now, or even an Air Slash from Sigilyph, and now he is at +4 or +5 rather special attack after this Quiver Dance, and he's just going to be able to go right for the Bug Buzz, which does more than enough. As long as he doesn't get crit here, which he does not, he will just be able to clean up this game here, unless the Mawile went for the Sucker Punch here, but I guess it just kind of came down to a 50-50. I'm not 100% sure if he had it. I don't think he did, though, because he showed these 3 moves, and I'm pretty sure I saw the paste and he had Thunder Punch. So I wonder how this would have played out if he did have the Sucker Punch. Oh, actually, no, I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure that didn't really matter how it played out, because Scarf Crook, I think, could have just swept with Foul Play. Stab Foul Play would have, I think, knocked out both the Chomp and the Talon from here. So as long as... Well, what was the Mawile at before? The Mawile was at 74. So I guess it just kind of came down to whether he was able to get in his Talon and heal it up to a certain point, because the Crook is... The Crook is burned, though, so Foul Play probably wouldn't knock out the Chomp from that range. I'm not exactly sure, but the Torn was looking pretty good as well. Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure how it would have played out, but he didn't even have the Thunder Punch, so it doesn't even matter. It's not really worth sitting there speculating, as now with that, even after the -2 from the Overheat, the Bug Buzz still knocks out a 4x resistant Talon, and AkkiVGC wins the first semifinals game and is moving on to the finals. Now, just a quick thing about Akki is that during the regular season, he's not Akki. He's not the GOAT. He's Axel. That's all he is. He's just some guy named Axel. Nothing special. You probably wouldn't even look twice at him, because he certainly doesn't look like a GOAT. So why would you have any reason to look twice at him? During the regular season, he's just Axel. He's just kind of cruising along, because he knows when he gets to the playoffs, that's when he's going to turn it on. Postseason AkkiVGC is a completely different beast, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot reiterate that enough. He is a completely different beast. And finals Akki is probably the most dangerous player you could ever possibly come across, because when he's in finals, that guy just puts in the work and he becomes practically unbeatable. I mean, obviously in Pokemon anything can happen, but when he is in finals, this guy just wants it more. It just kind of comes down to that. At the end of the day, he wants it more, so he's going to put in more work, and he's already so good that if he's putting in more work and he wants it more, there's a good chance he's going to come out on top. So as good as all these other players out there are, running to Akki in finals is almost akin to taking an L in finals. So I just had to make my joke there. I thought of it earlier today, and I told him I'm going to make it, so I did. Hopefully it was executed well. Hopefully he got a little bit of a laugh at it. Obviously he's amazing during the regular season too. It's not like he just barely scrapes by and gets into playoffs, but it's true that he's a different beast in the postseason, especially the finals. So we'll see how that bodes for the winner of the next game, which is between both Gypsy King and myself. Now, a little context on this game, which is kind of hype and exciting, is that this is kind of like our second time playing at 8-0, because our first time we ever played was back in the National Pokeball League Season 5. We were both 8-0, and then we had to play each other, and we had a really, really good game, and he ended up coming out on top and going undefeated for the rest of the season and winning the championship. And that's kind of what started the Gypsy King dynasty all the way back then. Just like how my Rams started the Patriots dynasty and were not able to end it last season, the dynasty was also started at my expense. Not really my expense, because since he didn't beat me in the finals, but I still, like, he went undefeated, and I had a chance to make it to the finals, and I lost in the semis. So it's kind of like our second time going 8-0 and having to play each other. This time around, though, we were both technically 7-1 because I had a mean game versus I at the last game of the season, and it didn't really affect the standings, so we just brought some memes because there was a good chance we'd have to play each other. And then he didn't play his last week game, and that one didn't affect the standings either. So he just took a forfeit for that. But either way, it didn't really matter. It was just basically the games that we played. We went 7-0 in the regular season, and then we both won a single playoff game to make it to the semifinals. Now, this is also our second time playing in the semifinals, as many of you probably remember our MPL Season 8 semifinal shenanigans. You know, who could forget? But this time around, it's for a league that we're both enjoying and having a good time in, and we're just going to kind of go at it one more time in Gen 7. We've had so many fantastic matches throughout Gen 6 and 7, but mostly in 7, because I feel like that's both when we probably hit our stride. Like, we definitely, even though he was at the top of his game in Gen 6 and I was starting to do really well also, I think that we definitely made big improvements and probably had some of our best matches ever in Gen 7. So this should be interesting because I love playing Dylan. It's just so much fun because I really feel that because we know each other so well, we are able to elevate each other to the next level. And I typically have a pretty decent record against Dylan, as I think in Gen 7 it's actually 3-1 in my favor. Obviously I had Magirna for one of those, but overall we've had some great games, but I think I've come out on top a little more than he has in Gen 7, which is cool because he's just, like, beating him is not easy to do. There aren't many people that often beat Gypsy, so to be able to get a few wins against him in Gen 7, even though I don't have nearly as many accolades or anything, is definitely something that I take pride in as a player, because our games are often just so good that they really feel like, hard-earned victories and whatnot. So this is one more chance for me to hopefully get a win over him in semifinals and move on to the finals, which I don't have a great history of doing well in there, but you never know. You never know. And it'll be really cool to get to play another fellow Rushmore brethren in the finals. But regardless, we're getting a guaranteed Rushmore final. So Akki makes another prediction that does come to light, and we'll see how this goes. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of my team. I put in a lot of time into this build. It's actually one of the few matchups I don't dislike for my team. This whole season, I've just felt like I've had these really, really tough matchups because, sure, I have Naga, where everyone is starting to think is broken, including myself, and Metachamp too, so it just seems like Naga, Medi, wow, like, who has the defenses or who has, like, switch-ins to those. But it's a lot it's a lot more complicated than that, because my base stat total of my team, like, on average, is so low, because I literally have a bunch of, like, glue mons that can check certain things but aren't really reliable counters to things, so it always kind of forces me to come up with these wacky spreads, play things in somewhat of a wacky fashion, which is kind of my specialty, but it can be difficult because I need to really be careful. I don't really have a lot of leeway to make mistakes, so that's why I've been really happy with my season so far, winning all 8 games basically. It has not been easy. I've really had to scrape past a few people, just barely scraping out the win, and it's been hype. It's been a lot of fun, but going against Dylan, his team is probably the most well-rounded I've had to go against, but surprisingly, I don't hate my matchup. In fact, it's honestly not bad. I would say that it might even be in my favor. There's a lot of things he could do with his team. He has a lot of versatility on it, which is why I wouldn't be so quick to say, like, I have a good matchup, but overall, I think my offense and my style just kind of matches up well against his team. So it really just kind of comes down to how we both prep and play. You always know he's going to play well, that's something you can count on. But I put in a lot of work to this team. My mocks started to go really, really well towards the the last few mocks that I've had going into this. Even when I've been getting hacks and missing lots of moves, I've been able to pull myself through tough situations and pull out the clean victories. So I'm really hoping I could do that in this match, as just winning this game. Even if I would end up losing in finals, I'd be really happy. So I'll go through my team quickly. I have a Choice Specs Lucario. I debated on bringing Brick Break for the longest time, but I ultimately opted to go close combat, yes, on a Specs Lucario, mainly for the Blissey, because a Fizz Def Blissey can avoid 2-hit KOs potentially from Brick Break. Brick Break was mainly for screens, because I've been spamming screens all season, and I know he knows that. So if he wanted to take advantage with his own screens and maybe Brick Break on one of his own mons, as he has a lot of good candidates for it with Mawile, Metagross, Buzzwole, and I don't know, maybe Thundurus, not really, but he's definitely got the options. He also has a Quilladin on his team, which maybe he'd take Brick Break on if he just didn't really have a solid stab to put on it. But yeah, so I know that he knows I was spamming mostly screens and even a bit of hazard stacking, so I wanted to be prepared for him potentially bringing screens, but I ultimately decided I'm going to allow myself to be weak to them, because I think that I have a team that can play around screens, and I really don't think it's generally in his best interest to bring them, as either he'd bring them on something kind of niche, or he'd bring them on Uxie, which I actually have ways to take advantage of that if he does bring screens on that. So I have the Specs Lucario with dual stabs being not Aura Sphere. I actually have Focus Blast, as Focus Blast is a 2-hit KO, and even Spadef Blissey, it does kind of depend on whether I hit them or not, of course, but yeah, I could 2-hit KO Spadef Blissey if he does bring it, which I think there's a good chance he does. And if he's Fizz Def, it's like a very, very easy 2-hit KO. He really can't recover up on it very easily unless he obviously gets a miss, but even then he'd still struggle with it. So, and it also OHKOs most Mawiles from full, which is really big. And even if it doesn't OHKO, if it does land, it's going to do it so much. Just weakening it is something really important for me, because I don't have that many Pokemon that can cleanly one-hit KO it. So that will be cool. Flash Cannon is just generally nice stab, does a lot to Mawile, and does a lot to Uxie. Flash Cannon was a move that I didn't have for a while, but I ended up putting on over Vacuum Wave, because I just really didn't find Vacuum Wave to be that useful in most of my mocks and such. So having the Flash Cannon can definitely be nice to get some good damage on Uxie, as well as Buzzwole if he's something like a Solfest, or he thinks that he could pivot into maybe a physical Lucario and then he gets bopped by Specs. I do have Psychic as well, which is mainly for the Toxapex, but he didn't end up bringing the Toxapex, which I was kind of expecting, but either way, I just did not want to be weak to Toxapex. So then next up, I have kind of the star of the team. I have a physically defensive, bulk up, recover, dual stabs Metacham, which is really, really nice against this team. I don't even really need bulk up that much, but it is definitely something that could come in handy, as I was debating things like Sleep Talk if he wanted to bring Yawn Uxie. I was considering Brick Break on Metacham, but ultimately I just figured Bulk Up is so good against his team, as it allows me to 1v1 so many things, especially if I could remove the Thundurus, and essentially just win the game if I get a boost, especially if the Mawile is already evolved and he can't intimidate me. So I'm High Jump Kick, which I haven't run once all season. Or maybe I ran once, but I can't remember. If I ran it once, it was only once. But I kind of need the High Jump Kick for the power output, because it just does so much, even with basically 0 attack investment. I may have like 8 attack EVs. It's nothing. I'm very, very nearly max Fizz Def. I have a little bit of speed. And I'm Psycho Cut as well, which could be nice for avoiding things like Rocky Helmet and just generally not missing. And it does have an extra crit chance, but that's not really what I need it for. Then I have a bulky Scarf Mesprit, which can pivot into the Garchomp. For example, I think if he brings Garchomp and he brings Z, he'd bring Dragonium, because he doesn't really need Rockium for anything. Dragonium hits Zapdos just as hard, even if I'm max Fizz Def, and it hits Uxie the hardest as well. Those are really my only solid Garchomp checks, as or I don't even want to say they're solid Garchomp checks. Those are the only things that could really take a hit from Garchomp, especially if boosted. So Mesprit being defensive allows it to take something like a Z Outrage even after rocks, and I could obviously 2 KO with Ice Beam. Even if he's Yachi, the first one obviously will pop the berry, and then the second one would be able to 2 KO if I needed it to. I also have Psychic, and then I have U-Turn and Healing Wish. This Healing Wish can be really, really nice, especially for the Medicham, and as well as this next Pokemon, which is a Adamant, not max attack, but a good amount of attack, nearly max HP, sub-toxic protect Seismitoad, which is actually really, really nice against this team. I thought about it, and I just was kind of struggling to justify putting it over Serp, but then I tested it out, and it was doing way more in practice than Serperior was, as sub allows me to beat Calm Mind Blissey, or not Calm Mind Blissey, rather, Seismic Toss Blissey, as it can't break my subs. It allows me to beat Mesprit that doesn't have Toxic. It allows me to pressure Thundurus, even if he does have Grass Knot. If I'm already behind a sub and he has to come in and attack me, I can get the Toxic off on it. It can beat things like Metagross. It can beat things like Buzzwole, potentially. Buzzwole's a little bit harder because if he's something like an Adamant Scarf, then Drain Punches do a lot, but I can still get some solid chip on him with just Toxicing and Protecting. And it does a really good number to Mawile, as the Earthquakes do a huge chunk, so just getting some chip on Mawile could really allow me to knock this thing out with an Earthquake, and also I'm bulky enough to easily take things like +2 Sucker Punch from a pretty solid amount of health. So next up we have my Camerupt, which is something that I guess some people were probably surprised to see me bring to the biggest game of the season, but it's just basically here to check the Mawile. You know, it happens to be a pretty solid Mawile check without things like Focus Punch. Mawile can't really 2 KO Fizdef Camerupt. He could with Knockoff, but I actually am the Z move. I do have Z eligibility on Camerupt. I am Z Earthquake because Z Earthquake allows me to OHKO Pex after Stealth Rocks if he's Spadef. Allows me to OHKO Blissey if he's Spadef, or, you know, give me a roll if he has some defense. It hits the Metagross crazy hard. It hits the Mawile crazy hard. And then I have Overheat, Stealth Rock, Ice, and Hidden Power Ice. Hidden Power Ice is just kind of nice because I'm really paranoid about things like Garchomp if I don't want to waste my Z move and I'm afraid of it subbing, or just want to get some solid chip on it so it's in range of things like Medicham later on. Having the Hidden Power Ice is really nice, but also for the Thundurus, because Thundurus with Substitute is really annoying against me, and having HP Ice is definitely nice to be able to consistently break the subs, because Overheat is not something I want to rely on, and I do kind of need the power of Overheat to hit things like maybe an Assault Vest Buzzwole, which is definitely a good Superior check, Metagross, and Mawile, which if I don't have my Z move intact, Overheat should OHKO most Mawile sets, if not all of them. So finally, I have my Takasugi, my Naga, the Broken Mon. Unfortunately, against Dylan's team, it's probably one of the worst matchups that it could have, but at the same time, it is an important Mon for me to bring because he's got Blissey, he's got Metagross, he has Toxapex, he has Uxie kind of, but not really because you would imagine it would be there to check the Medicham, but still, it's obviously something that could chew at any hit from Naga and hit it with Psychic. And then Mawile too, where Sucker Punch just hits it really, really hard. But it's important for me to have because Thundurus is such a threat against me that just being able to come in and either force the Thundurus out or being able to knock it out if he wants to Thunder Wave me, those things are really important, as well as the Garchomp. If Garchomp gets kind of out of hand and I don't want to bring in something like Medicham to revenge it, or Mesprit if he has something like Yachi, or he might be out of range of Ice Beam, the Naga could always come in and knock him out unless he's Haban. So that is really nice. I'm also running Fire Blast and Air Slash on this. The only reason I'm running Air Slash is because, like I said, I think Assault Vest Buzz is a pretty solid bring against me. It can definitely, just being able to switch up moves is really nice, as it could hit things like Zapdos really hard, especially depending on my set if I'm not physically defensive. It can take hits from things like Naga normally and lure it and knock it out. It can take hits from things like Mesprit and heal up so much from the Leech Life. Can take hits from especially Lucario and recover with Drain Punch, as well as the Superior. So it's a solid bring versus me, so I brought the Air Slash. I was going to just bring Fire Blast and Flamethrower, but I decided to go with the Air Slash and go with my gut. as I don't really like to bring Fire Blast on Naga. I only brought it once else in the season, but the ability to OHKO Mawile I really felt was useful, as defensively EV'd enough to take something like a Sucker Punch after Stealth Rocks and 2 Life Orb hits. Kind of specific, but you just never know, and I was able to afford that. And with Life Orb, Nasty Plot Naga actually 1v1's most Blissey, so this Naga is definitely a big threat against him, as this set also beats Toxapex. So even though he's got a lot of solid checks to Naga, it is something that he has to prepare quite a bit for, so it forces the prep, and it allows me to force out huge threats like this Thundurus and potentially Garchomp, which he didn't bring. So enough rambling, but I just really wanted to talk about my team because I put so much time into it. As now we're going to get into the game, as he leads right with the Uxie, I lead with the Mesprit. I'm just going to go right for the Scarf U-turn to gauge the damage, as well as to see if he would be Rocky Helmet or anything, and maybe gauge an item, as he actually does reveal the leftovers. So here I'm just going to click Flash Cannon with Lucario. I have Z eligibility on Lucario, so here my moves seem to either just be going for something like a Meteor Mash, which he could take really easily because that U-turn does kind of reveal that he's Fizz Def, which is obvious because of Medicham, of course, but if I try to go for something like SD, his best play is probably to just pivot out with U-turn and not risk going hard into something like Buzzwole or Metagross that could potentially take a lot of damage from it, as well as anything else basically. So if he's got U-turn, I'm figuring he's probably going to go for it. So I just want to get some good damage on this Uxie because my Medicham could really go nuts, especially if I get Uxie out of the way. I'm not exactly sure what his full set's going to be. The fact that he has Stealth Rock though is kind of nice because that kind of limits the amount of moves he can have on this Uxie. So I'm just going to go for the Flash Cannon and get a pretty big chunk off on him. He might have some Spadef based on how much that did, but regardless, that could be in line with him just being max Fizz Def. As here he brings the Buzzwole right in, which tells me he's either Assault Vest or Scarf. Both I think are the best sets against me, but I'm just kind of forced to go right into the Medicham here, as it's actually designed to take on Buzzwole. Both of those sets in particular, because unless he has Power Up Punch on an Assault Vest Buzzwole, he can't really hit my Medicham that hard as EV to be able to avoid 2-hit KOs from anything Buzzwole wants to deal. I can even avoid 2-hit KOs from things like Adamant Metagross's Meteor Mash, as well as Garchomp's Earthquakes. So this Medicham is really, really bulky, so I'm just going to go right into it, as obviously I don't want it to take much damage, but I know that it won't take much damage. Unless he was something like Banned, which I'm definitely not expecting, especially the way he brought it on Lucario. That'd have to be kind of crazy bluff, but regardless, even if he was something like Banned, a Drain Punch wouldn't have done that much more, as it only would have done around 30. So here I'm going to Mega Evolve and just go right for the high jump kick, because I calced, and Uxie should be in guaranteed range of 2 KOs from 2 high jump kicks. So thankfully I land both, and I knock him out. Now here he goes into the Mawile. So I am kind of forced to switch out here, but even though I have the Camel to check the Mawile, the thing is, if he's carrying something like Focus Punch or even something like Sub Punch, I could be in a lot of trouble, because if I go into Camerupt and he subs here, which is a pretty safe play, because even if I was like a max Adamant Medicham, which he probably realizes I'm not due to how little the Drain Punch did, the Mawile could get behind a sub and then Focus Punch the Camel, and even though my Camel's max Fizz Def, that actually has a pretty good chance to OHKO me after Stealth Rocks, because Mawile's attack is just insane. So, and Focus Punch is obviously a ridiculously strong move. So I just felt I gotta go into Lucario here, because it's kind of my most expendable Pokemon. Medicham is just looking amazing, the fact that I knocked out his Uxie. So I'm gonna have to go into Lucario here. And if he does go for Play Rough, it's going to knock out my Luke, but that's kind of okay, as I do have Camel, which could come in and get up Rocks, which is really, really nice to pressure the Thundurus. He may have Defog, but regardless, he's going to have to come in and take Stealth Rocks at some point, or he just comes in on the Rocks and I can get some damage off, which would be great. And I still have like most of my things that could really threaten the Mawile, as I have the Z Earthquake on Camel. I have High Jump Kick on Medicham, which will hit Mawile really, really hard, especially when I'm not at -1, as well as having Life Orb Fire Blast. I also have the Earthquake on Adamant Seismitoad rather. So here I'm going to pivot into my Lucario, as he actually reveals the stockpile, and I'm just like, no, don't do this. This just screams right away baton pass. I know Mawa's got baton pass, but like stockpile is just something I should have like scoured through its move pool just to see some kind of crazy things it could potentially do to me. I was mostly scouring through the different attacks it could potentially hit Camel with, but I didn't really think of anything of stockpile, as this is really, really bad because depending on what his Thunderous set is, that could be a huge nuisance with him trying to set up. But the main thing is, I was kind of expecting this Metagross there to be a good chance for him to bring Weakness Policy. That's one of the reasons I was afraid of screens, because Weakness Policy Metagross is really good against me. But Bulk Up Medicham just turns that into setup fodder. It turns most Agility Metagross into setup fodder unless he happens to be Life Orb or gets lucky with Meteor Mash boosts. So here I just debated this play for a long time. Like, what do I do? It made me really kind of bummed out right away that I didn't have Roar on this Camel, because I initially had Roar, not predicting the baton pass. Like, obviously I'm someone who likes to prepare for everything, but I just didn't know Mawile even got stockpile. That was definitely an oversight on my part. So I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, I had it and I took it off last minute. I had it on my first build just because I was like, I don't think I really need any coverage, which I don't really technically need it, but Hidden Power Ice was actually doing pretty well in my tests. So I ultimately felt it was solid to keep it, as, like I said, I didn't know the Mawile got the stockpile. If it had Swords Dance and Baton Pass, I think I'd honestly be okay. But the fact that he's got stockpile makes this a whole different ball game. So I'm just shitting my pants right now, excuse my language, as I don't know exactly what to do right here. If Camel had Roar, it would be a great answer, but because even if you went to something like Thunderous, for example, unless he had Taunt, then like he'd need something like Life Orb, Hidden Power Water to knock out my Camel, as Solid Rock would prevent Hidden Power Water from OHKOing me. And obviously, I could Roar out Metagross pretty easily. It wouldn't be able to do that much damage to a Fizz Def Camel. So here, I'm just kind of forced to suck it up and go for the Focus Blast, as I don't have another play here. Because he could Baton Pass on all of these things, and the rest of my team is more passive. But the problem is, I really want to go Medicham here, because Medicham is the biggest threat to this Metagross coming in, as well as Buzzwole. But if he does have Hidden Power flying on Thunderous, then I'm in trouble. And if he goes for Play Rough, just knowing that he can take any hit from this Luke here, then my Medicham goes down, and that's my win con. Like, that's the best thing against his team. So I'm not doing that. I am just going to suck it up and go for the Focus Blast. It should still do a ton of damage, even if he's max Spadef Mawile. It does, well over half. Not well over half, but it does over half. As you're going to see, it does do a little over 50 as he Baton passes into the Thunderous. Now, this thing can take Focus Blast extremely easily at +1. He could even be leftovers for some passive recovery. So I thought about this for a little while, but ultimately decided I have to go Mesprit, because there's a really good chance that unless he's running a ton of bulk on this Thunderous, that my Psychics can break any sub. I don't want to go for Ice Beams, because Ice Beam could proc the Weakness Policy, which if he just goes for Agility with Weakness Policy, it's GG. It's just I have nothing to hit him hard enough with, and he kills my whole team. So I'm forced to go into the Mesprit and just start clicking Psychic, as there's like a very little chance that he will be able to sub on this, especially if he's like running the amount of bulk that I'm kind of expecting, which essentially means he'd have practically no chance to avoid sub being broken. So I'm going to just click Psychic here and hope for the best, as I know I could live a +2 Thunderbolt. It just kind of depends on whether he's a boosting item or not. If he's Life Orb or if he's Zap Plate or something, then he will knock me out. But if not, I definitely live this, and I can get off 2 Psychics. So I'm going to go for the Psychic here, as you're going to see, it does do 27, so he can't sub on me. So here he gets the Thunderbolt off, and I'm able to get a little more damage with Psychic. And this is why, like I said before, Naga was so necessary, because Thunderous kind of got out of hand. This was the Pokemon that was going to beat me. So I kind of felt I needed the Naga, as I can be able to knock out the Thunderous if need be. So I get him in range of guaranteed Draco Meteor. It would have been nice if I got him in range of something like Fire Blast, but like just in case he wanted to preserve and he was something like a Pursuit Metagross. But regardless, he's in guaranteed range of Draco. So he's going to be able to knock me out here. Goes for the hidden power. It doesn't reveal which one it is because it could be, I'm thinking ice or flying. I really don't think he's going to be hidden power water because obviously that gets walled by Seismitoad. Unless he's obviously grass knot, but then he doesn't have a move to hit Naga. So I'm thinking flying or ice for sure. So now, it kind of just comes down to me hitting this Draco Meteor or not with Naga. Because if I hit it, even with the Spadef boost, he's definitely in range of Draco. It also could come down to whether he has Thunder Wave or not, because if he goes for Thunder Wave and paralyzes me, and I do get fully powered and or miss the Draco, that definitely increases his chances of getting lucky here and knocking me out. So here, I bring in the Naga. He's in guaranteed range of the Draco, so I'm just clicking Draco and hoping for the best. And it turns out he goes for the rest, and I'm like, oh my god, that means he's going to be Resto Chesto. He does reveal the Chesto Berry, and I'm just like, GG, like this is this is horrible. Like, this is really good prep on his part. Like, obviously Baton Pass is like, it's got its stigma as being kind of a lame strat, but like it's within the rules. Especially like we're considering of banning things like chains next season. I really don't think that Baton Pass should be broken. Not that it should be broken, that should be banned. Just passing stats, especially if there's no speed involved or there's no speed boostability involved and there's no chains. But people have just been kind of losing to just straight up Baton Pass this season, so some people do want it to be discussed. And now all of a sudden I'm just like, they were right, because I did not bring the Roar on the Camel, which obviously I was kicking myself for, but like I said, I did not predict this strat to come. There were very few things I allowed myself to be weak to on his team that like he could have brought, and Baton Pass was one of them, but I just didn't know that he even had stockpile that he could go for. So here, I just go for the Draco, and what do you know, it crits him and he goes down, as that is really unfortunate. Now normally, I'm sure most of you guys are just expecting, now Matty, why are you showing us this replay? Because you guys probably restarted the game, and obviously that was something I was always pretty big on. But something I've just kind of learned throughout the years in Pokemon is that, and just in life in general, things don't go down a linear path. They don't always go down the way you expect them to or how they're quote-unquote supposed to. Crazy things happen, curveballs are thrown at you, and that's just kind of how it goes. It's just part of the game. It's really unfortunate because, you know, Dylan's one of my closest friends, and I don't want to hack him out of a game that he literally had in the bag basically just there. But at the end of the day, this is the game that we play. We kind of put ourselves at risk of these things, and I've lost so many important games throughout the years due to hacks that, you know, sometimes you just better off taking those. It depends. Like, it really depends. I did sit there and kind of think about doing the restart, but I don't know. I just think I'm kind of past that stage where it's just like, I'm playing Pokemon mostly for fun. I am really enjoying the fulfillment that it's brought back to my life after not playing for a while, because it's just, I've had a fun team to use, and like I said, even though it's fun, it's not really this great team that I could just easily come into and beat people with. I've had to put in a lot of work to earn those wins, and I have, so it's felt good being able to win most of my games, basically all of them clean. So that was really unfortunate, as obviously he still could potentially have a chance here. The fact that he's still got the stockpile on Mawile makes it a threat, as that could insinuate that maybe these are setup Pokemon. Calm-Mind Blissey actually is a pretty big threat against me, and Buzzwole could be bulk up or something with some kind of berry or who knows. But even with Scarf, stockpile past to it is still really annoying. So we're just going to continue with the game, as here he brings in the Metagross. I'm not clicking Fire Blast. I know this is weakness policy. This is one of the first sets I thought he might bring when I was preparing for this game. So I'm not clicking Fire Blast. I want to just get some chip on him to know what kind of set he is. And if I get some chip, he might be in range of High Jump Kick later. He'll definitely be in range of a +1 High Jump Kick, or High Jump Kick after Stealth Rocks he'll have a good chance of being in range. And if I get off a Draco here, even at -2. So I'm just going to click Draco, as if he sets up agilities, unless he has something like Curse, basically, there's not much he could do here to threaten my team too much, as this is actually set up fodder for the Metacham, like I mentioned before. So I'm just going to go for the Draco here. There's a pretty decent chunk. It's 23% off, which tells me that he probably has a good amount of HP, but I still know this thing is going to be weakness policy. I know it. But I'm not going to risk it. And he went for the Zen there. I'm assuming mostly just in case I wanted to go for something like Nasty Plot. If I go for Nasty Plot, then he actually has a chance to just die to the Fire Blast, even if he has a lot of bulk. And I could obviously have something like Specs Vacuum Wave on Luke. So he knocks me out with the Zen. And now here, I debated a long time whether I should bring in my Medicham or not. But ultimately, I decide to bring in Camerupt because I'm just like, Medicham can come in on basically any other Pokemon on his team later. The Mawil's only at 46, so it's in range of High Jump Kick. It easily comes in on Blissey. Easily comes in on Scarf Buzzwole or Assault Vest, whatever he is. And could come in on the Metagross too, but I just don't want to risk my Medicham too early, as if he's got something like Toxic or Explosion here, I could be in trouble. Something like Explosion or just a crit could put me in range of like a Bullet Punch or a Scarf Buzzwole. So I just don't want to take the risk and come in and bulk up on this thing, because that's kind of what I'd have to do. If I recover up, then and he goes for Meteor Mash, then I'm risking him getting crits and or attack boosts. So I just don't want to blow it too early, as I can go into Camerupt and kind of just fire off my Z Earthquake here, as if he goes into Buzzwole, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I can either get up my rocks or just overheat, chipping this thing down, which would be nice, as that would put my Seismitoad in a fantastic position, as I am just going to fire off the Ground EMZ as he goes into the Blissey. And now, like I mentioned earlier, if this Blissey is Spadef, then even mostly Spadef, then this Tectonic Rage from Camerupt, Z Earthquake, should just cleanly KO this Blissey. If he has some defense, which I am expecting, I don't think he's going to be purely Spadef with no defense at all. But even so, even if he's just got mostly Spadef so he could check Naga, there's a really good chance that this Camerupt should or could knock him out with the Z Earthquake as I click it. And I do 99. Now, Dylan sent me his team after this game, and I put in the calc for Blissey, and I don't know if there's something wrong with the calc or not. It says that I shouldn't even be coming close to this amount, so I don't know. Not that's not even close, but it was like max like 90 or something like that. So either like he had the wrong spread, or like the calc was just messed up, because sometimes like importing sets, certain things just kind of mess up. But that Tectonic Rage just barely misses out in the KO, and the reason that kind of matters is because now, based on the fact that he lived that, there's a decent chance he'd be able to soft boiled up on me, as well as what you're going to see happening next. I deliberated on clicking Stealth Rocks a lot here, but what I didn't want was him to go for a Wish, because if he goes for Wish and then goes into something like Mawile after I knock this out, if he goes for Stockpile, then or something like Sub, then he can get back up to full and just beat me, or just not beat me necessarily, but start up with the Baton Pass shenanigans again. But so I'm just deciding whether I want to go for Stealth Rocks or not. But ultimately, I decide I want to Earthquake, as if he does go into Mawile, he'd need Sub to be able to receive that Wish. He would need Sub, or he would need Protect, which I don't think are too likely, because I think he's going to have, he's already revealed 2 moves, and I definitely think he's going to have Play Rough, as it just hits so much my team so hard. So I think he'd have at least 1 attack. Play Rough is definitely the best move he could have against me. So I'm going to bank, because like I said, at +1 Spadef, I could still knock him out with the Overheat. So I'm just going to go for the EQ here to knock out the Blissey in case, or just pressure it if he tries to soft boiled on me. So if he does start soft boiling, then I'll just get up my rocks and I could bring in something else. But he actually goes for the Healing Wish, which is really, really annoying, because now this Mawile could come back in and potentially start up some shenanigans again. But ultimately, this isn't the worst thing in the world, because I just know not to proc this Metagross's weakness policy. If he wanted to hard Baton Pass into Metagross right here and get a weakness policy boost thinking I'd go for Earthquake, it would die to the Overheat, and I'd be able to win the game. Just straight up from there, pretty much. But if he wants to stockpile again and Baton Pass, then I'm still looking pretty good with Medicham. So here he goes for the stockpile. I do go for the Overheat, and it does a lot of damage. It gets 61% off. He was at like 46 before, so like that's what I was saying. If he got it up to +1, I'd still be able to knock him out. So here I know that he's probably going to Baton Pass, but I cannot risk my Medicham, because if he's expecting me to have Recover on it, then he would probably know that Medicham just wins without luck right now. So I'm not going to risk my Medicham. If he wants to go for Play Rough, I cannot risk my Medicham. So I'm going to go hard once again into the Lucario, as it can do really, really solid damage depending on either one that he brings in. As he goes into the Metagross, so I'm just, like I said before, I'm going to suck it up and go for the Focus Blast. Unfortunately, something like 2 Flash Cannons, because he probably doesn't have Earthquake is what I'm thinking, because he went for Zen Headbutt on the Naga. I don't really think he'd need both, especially when there really wasn't much of a reason to not go for Earthquake in that situation, because it hit most of my team harder or just as hard as Zen Headbutt did. Like if I went to Uxie or Mesprit, I keep confusing the two, then Zen Headbutt would do less or just do very little. It wouldn't really make a difference if he went for Earthquake and I avoided it. So I kind of just have to go for Focus Blast here, because if I hit my Focus Blast, then he will be in range of my Medicham, a high jump kick. And if he does something like Brick Breaker, Earthquake, it will knock me out, but I can live a Zen Headbutt from here, guaranteed. So I'm just going to go for the Focus Blast, as I do outspeed and I do miss. He goes for the Zen Headbutt, does 83, I do live it, so I'm like, hey, I have one more chance to hit this. If I do hit, he's in range of Medicham, and that makes my life easier, because unless he has something like Protect, Medi's looking pretty good. As I am just going to go for the Focus Blast one more time, as he actually reveals the BP to be his 4th move. I was kind of thinking he would have Grass Knot as his 4th move, because he kind of struggles to hit Seismitoad, so in case I didn't proc his weakness policy, he really wouldn't have much to hit Seismitoad too hard. But I guess he felt the BP was more worth it for things like Naga and just my general speedier Mons, especially at +2, as if I was something like had some kind of Scarf Mon, or he wasn't able to get the agility up, he could still easily clean up my team with BP. But here I'm going to bring the Medicham. Now, like I mentioned before, Meteor Mash from Metagross has 0 chance to do over 50% to me. So that means Recover is gaining health for me for sure. But the thing is, I don't want to risk Meteor Mash boosts. So I don't want to just go right for Recover here, because if I bulk up, Meteor Mash is doing like barely over 30 max, which puts me in a fantastic position, as I get 1 bulk up, and then I recover up the next turn, bulk up again, and it's basically GG as long as I don't either get crit or he just doesn't keep getting boosts. But even if he does get boosts, I boost more reliably than he does, because I just bulk up and he only gets a 20% chance of boosting with the Meteor Mash. So if I just get up a couple more bulk up, if I just get up a couple bulk ups, even Mawile will be in range of something like a Psycho Cut. And then same thing with Buzzwole. It doesn't matter what set he is, pretty much. I just knock him out with the Psycho Cut. And even if he did manage to like crit through me or something, or have like Payappa counter, then Camo would just win on the next turn. As I'm going to go for the bulk up here, as he actually reveals the Iron Head. Now, he goes for the Iron Head, and I'm just like, that's amazing. He has Iron Head. He doesn't have Meteor Mash, so he can't boost up on me. He goes for the Iron Head, and what do you know? He gets the crit. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I did not feel too bad earlier about not doing the restart, as even though that's something I normally like to do, because I really don't like. It just doesn't feel great when you win a match that you shouldn't have won, just due to sheer luck. But this is just how Pokemon works. It's how the game, works, and these are things that you have to just deal with when it happens. It's just like in any other thing in real life. Unfair things happen to people who are doing the right thing, or bad things happen to good people. It's just the natural progression of things. It's just how kind of life works. And I'm definitely someone who still kind of likes to do restarts, especially during regular season or just whatever games that don't really matter for so much. But this is literally to make it to finals, and I'm just like, you know what, I've gotten lucked in so many games before, and it always could still happen later on in this game, so you never know. And it turns out he gets the crit, as he's already revealed the Bullet Punch, and I was hoping that maybe like the Bullet Punch wouldn't KO here, but I calced it and it definitely KOs me from this range. So that really stinks, because with the bulk up, that Iron Head was doing like 25. I just recover up and it's GG. Even if I like missed a high jump kick after a couple bulk ups. He's just doing such little damage to me that there was very little chance he had to pull it from there. But like I said, that's just how this game works. And essentially the better player won. Like it's frustrating because I put in so much time to this build in this game, and I really feel like I brought an awesome team and that I played it so well as I could have, basically. But he brought baton pass, which definitely threw me for a loop. And like I said, when it comes to really important games like this, you just kind of got to do what it takes to win. Obviously, I wish he didn't bring baton pass, but I cannot fault him for it. Like I said, this is one of the matchups this entire season that I don't really dislike. In fact, like I said, it might even be in my favor. So with me having a favorable matchup and him knowing how hard I prep for our games, bringing baton pass, especially something like stockpile pass, which is kind of hard to predict, was a really good call on his end. He was the better player, came up with the better idea, and executed his plans really well. And I got lucky to even avert them in the first place. So it is what it is. But I'm going to try to actually salvage this match, as basing off the calcs with my Naga, he shouldn't be in range of overheat from this, but there is a chance, like for example, if my Naga got a min roll, then there is a chance that overheat can knock out this Metagross, and obviously I have a chance to crit. I just want to keep this in case this Buzzwole isn't scarfed. So I'm going to go into my Camel here because +2 BP isn't going to, or just regular BP isn't going to do that much. So I go into the Camel. He goes for the Bull Punch, only does 11. As I'm just going to click the overheat, I know he's going to be weakness policy, like I said. He actually misses the Meteor, or the Zen Headbutt here, which doesn't really make a difference because I know if he lives the overheat, I'm just going to be in range of the Zen Headbutt. But if I knock him out or crit him, then that could change things, as I go for the overheat, and it does do a good chunk, but he does live it, which I expected. And I doubt that was even a roll, as he does just go for the Iron Head in the next turn to get enough damage on me to put the rest of my team in range of the Buzzwole. So basically what I'm going to do here is he goes into the Buzzwole, and I'm just going to go hard into Seismitoad because my Seismitoad is kind of bulky. Adamant Drain Punches are doing around like 35 to 40, and I'm a sub-protect toxic Seismitoad. So if I can get, protect this next turn, get a Toxic off on him, I could potentially try to Toxic stall him out. Now thinking about it, I probably should have sacked my... Actually, no, the reason I didn't want to sack my Camel is because of the Beast Boost. That's why I went hard into this. But yeah, I basically don't really have a chance. I would need to get double protects because Seismitoad has pretty high HP, so he's going to heal a good amount with the Drain Punches, even if I, get some good damage with the Toxic. But I'm just going to do my best, see what happens. But he crits with the Drain Punch, so I'm most likely in range of the next one. As I go for the Protect, now he would need kind of a high roll to knock me out in this next one, but like you could see, there's really nothing I could do even if I get the Toxic off. Everything else is in range of him just going for one attack. So that is how this one is going to play out. He's going to knock out my Medicham, and then he's going to knock out my Camel. So that is good game. I know this one went on for a long time, especially compared to the first narration, but obviously I was a lot more invested in this one, as it was, like I said, one that I put a lot of time into, and it was my own game. So obviously I had a lot more insight on this match than I did on both Marans and Akki's. So congratulations to Gypsy. Like I said, the better player won. He deserved it. I got lucky to be in the position that I was in this game, but it is kind of a bummer because it's like, I got lucky. All right, I don't normally get lucky in big games or just many games in general. I'm not going to sit there and say my luck has been so bad, because this season it honestly hasn't been that bad. It's not like I've been really hacked out of any games or been put in so many terrible positions because of hacks. That really hasn't been the case too much. But I have been hacked out of big games before, like most people have. So the fact that I got a little bit of luck here, and it put me in a very, very good spot to win. Basically a nearly guaranteed spot to win. That was taken away by another crit. Was unfortunate. Even, for example, like had I hit the Focus Blast on the Metagross there, I would have been in a really good spot, because had I hit the Focus Blast, I could have not had to risk my Medicham and try to set up on the Metagross right then and there, because Metachan was just basically beating. Mawile was only at 39, and this Buzzwole could not touch me. So even if he got to +1, unless he was locked into Leech Life, which I had Camel for, then yeah, I was basically in perfect shape to win. So if I hit that Focus Blast on the Metagross, then I probably guaranteed would have been able to win, because the Seismitoad just pretty much 1v1 the rest of his team from there. I actually might have been able to outspeed the Metagross there, because he didn't have that much speed on it. And Seismitoad is naturally faster, and I'm actually running a decent little creep. But so if I outsped that, then it was GG. There was just really nothing he could have done. So had I hit that Focus Blast, I would have been in prime position to win, basically guaranteed, no matter what kind of luck or anything. But even with the miss, which I can't complain, I hit one earlier. I mean, I guess I do have more of a chance to hit 2 than I don't. It might be a close to a 50-50% chance to miss 1 out of 2, but regardless, it's kind of a shame, because at the end of the day, even though he got me with that strategy, I still prepped really well, I think, and I played it essentially perfectly, as best as I could, and tried to do everything I could to not lose this game to hacks, and I still did. So it is what it is, though, because like I said, he deserved it. It was not the type of game where I'm trying to sit here and say he stole it from me. He definitely deserved it, as I would not have had an answer to that Thundurus, but oh well. I guess even when I do get lucky, it doesn't last very long, as this was only a 27-turn game, and I still couldn't hold out for that much longer. So it is what it is. I'm really happy with the season overall, because it was my first time playing in over a year, and it was a really solid league in terms of talent. I drafted a team, like I said, that was a lot more fun than it was good. My team is extremely frail. It's very offensive, which fits my style, but just really does not have the reliable defensive bulk and pivots that can allow me to have solid matchups against most teams. In fact, I had, in my opinion, really bad matchups against the majority of the teams that I played this season, and I was able to go 8-0 up until this point. So I'm definitely proud of it. Made it to the top 4 and lost to essentially the best player in the format. Obviously, like I said before, Akki in finals is a completely different beast, so this should be really interesting, seeing those two duke it out for one more time in Gen 7 in the finals. You have probably 2 of the people who have won the most championships in Gen 7, or just in general, so it should be really hyped to see them duke it out for supremacy of the UDL Season 1. Winner will be getting a t-shirt that I'll be shipping out. Congratulations to both of them for making it. They both deserved it. Like I said, Dylan 100% deserved this win, because I basically won, or had a chance to win, because of a 4% crit. But that's just how Pokemon works. As you can see, he basically only had a 4% chance to win after everything was all said and done with the Thundurus, and he still did. So that's just kind of how it goes. Congratulations to both of them. I had a great time this season, and I'm going to have a great time watching them 2 play in finals. Are 2 of my closest friends, and I wish them the best. So shout outs to Maran for taking top 4. And yeah, that's all I have to say to wrap up this video. I know it was a bit of a long one, but this was a pretty crazy game. We both really put in the work in the prep and played really well. So I felt it was worth kind of going into pretty in-depth analysis, but that's all I have to say. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for UDL Season 2, which probably won't happen for a very long time, probably not until next spring, because I know there's lots of leagues starting up as soon as Sword and Shield starts, and this is a new league, so a lot of people have their original leagues to start with. Whereas I also, DPL happens in the winter, so I'm figuring a lot of people are going to prefer playing in those than the UDL. So we're going to start next spring, probably for Season 2. So if you're looking forward to that, it'll be a little bit of a wait, but regardless, it'll be pretty hype nonetheless. So I'm really looking forward to it. Had a really solid last run in Gen 7 that I'm really proud of. So can't be too mad, and can't say much more than that. So yeah, hope you all have yourselves a fantastic day, and I will see you all in the next one later.